Hello and welcome to Transfermarkt and to another daily transfer news update. There's plenty to talk about today, including a potential new manager at Manchester United before this weekend. Quick business by them after the sacking of Erik ten Hag yesterday. We also have some rumours to look at, including Manchester United, Liverpool and Arsenal. But let's get started with the latest on Man United's manager. And after sacking Erik ten Hag yesterday, it is rumoured that Ruben Amorim of Sporting has given the green light to become the next Manchester United manager. The current Sporting CP manager leads the Liga Portugal with 9 wins out of 9. And you, in your initial reaction to this news that Amorim could be the next man in the dugout at Old Trafford?
Well, firstly, it all seems to have happened very quickly. Obviously, since news that Erik ten Hag was dismissed yesterday after they get another defeat against West Ham, and the kind of rumours emerged, within a couple of hours. I think it was, David Ornstein at the Athletic broke the story that Manchester United had began negotiations for Amorim, which it gives you the feeling that there was certainly dialogue before the decision to sack Erik ten Hag, because things don't move that quickly without there being some initial contact. And we all know how football works with agents and representatives all speaking all the time. So in terms of his potential appointment, he's also a very talented manager. He's done excellent at Sporting Lisbon. He's had interest from various clubs at Liverpool, I think last season before they bought Arne Slot. There's also the links to West Ham when they famously got on that plane, and there's photos going around of that. But he's even been mentioned as a potential successor to Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. So he's clearly well thought of. I've had a little bit of concerns over his potential appointment in terms of, I think there's quite a lot of similarities between Erik ten Hag and Amorim in terms of, they play a dominant style of football in a league where they're expected, they have the best players. Tactically as well, he generally plays with a back three, so it'll be interesting to see how that works at Manchester United, because I think for the last, as long as I can remember, they've always played a back four since Louis van Gaal's time, and he sometimes played a three. So it's certainly interesting. It seems to have got a good reaction amongst Manchester United supporters. So it looks like that could be done pretty quickly, and maybe even in place for the weekend's game against Chelsea.
Looking at a few of the numbers, it will reportedly cost Manchester United €10 million to pry him away from Sporting. His career points per game ratio is 2.28, which is quite a substantial number, although his entire career has been spent in Portuguese football. He had a really good spell at Braga, which I think a lot of people don't know about because it was so short. He only managed them for 13 games. He won 10 of those, and within those 13 games also won the cup. He then went on to Sporting, where he has won 2 league titles, 2 cup titles and a Super Cup. And what's most impressive for me is that in his time at Sporting, he's had to deal with the sales of Manuel Ugarte, Pedro Porro, Mateus Nunes, Nuno Mendes, João Palhinha, and even more recently Issahaku Fatawu, who moved to Leicester. And after all that, he's currently sitting top of the Liga Portugal, 9 wins out of 9 and 3 points clear at the top of the league. But the biggest concern I'd have for Manchester United, and you mentioned there's some similarities to Erik ten Hag, I think Ten Hag was a very exciting appointment for United at the time because of how well he did at Ajax with that famous run to the semi-final of the Champions League. Very, very could have been the final and probably would have won it with the way they were playing that season. But they brought in a manager then who wasn't in any of the top 5 leagues, like you said, managing a team who had the best players in the country and was expected to be successful all the time. I feel like you have a very similar thing with Amorim and Sporting now, and of course there are some competitors to them, Porto and Benfica, but you could say the same about Ajax having PSV and Feyenoord, especially during Arne Slot's time there, which we'll talk about shortly. But I think it's an exciting appointment, and I think it's another one where United are looking to build for the future, but I'm not sure if they're making the same mistakes that they did a couple of years ago, but only time will tell on that. And everyone do let us know in the live chat or in the comments your thoughts on Amorim to Manchester United. But he might not be the only Sporting employee making that move, because headlines today are saying that Man United are also interested in Sporting's 17-year-old Portuguese midfielder Giovanni Quenda, and he's a very exciting prospect for the future, and he's the 4th most valuable 17-year-old in the world according to our market values here at Transfermarkt. He's behind Lamine Yamal, who everyone is, Estevao and Pau Cubarsí. He's played every league game so far this season, about 80% of minutes with 1 goal and 1 assist. Regarding these links, Ewan, do you think this is a kind of an easy headline because of the links between Amorim and Man United, or do you think there could be more to this story?
Naturally, you'd think it's an easy headline, and it's been piggybacked off the back of the Amorim story, but these rumours have been in place for quite a while before Erik ten Hag lost his job, and I think he's just a player that will be on the radar of most top clubs in Europe. I think Manchester City and Chelsea have been linked as well in England, and he's a phenomenal talent. I think he's got £100 million, €100 million, sorry, release clause, so about £80 million. So I can't imagine Manchester United forking out for that in January, but perhaps next summer. If Amorim comes, and that could be a player he wants to bring. I think he's a phenomenal talent. Speaking to people at Transfermarkt and our Portuguese team, they speak glowingly of the player. He's predominantly a right winger. He can play on the left. Right wing's been a problem position for Manchester United. I think it still remains that. They've had to play Marcus Rashford on that side this season predominantly. That's not his favourite position. He doesn't really like playing there, albeit he can do it. Garnacho can play out there. Ahmad's game time has been limited in recent weeks, so I think it's a position that Manchester United will look at moving forward. But with that price tag, when you're just talking about Amorim as well, he's got a fantastic record at bringing through young players, which I think will be really important because Ten Hag was good at that during the club. He brought through Garnacho, Kobe Mino, who are both when fit first team players now. So that'll be an important factor. I think there's a lot of good talent in Manchester United's academy now who have the ability to be first team players. Look at Obi Martin, they've just got from Arsenal. He's looks nailed on to be a first team star in the future. Shea Lacey, Jack Fletcher. There's lots of young players there, so that could be important for the business model. But in terms of this signing, Manchester United may have to spend 10 million euros to get Amorim. They'll have to give Erik ten Hag a payoff, which is believed to be around 20 million euros. So it's not going to be cheap to do this. So I can't imagine they'll be spending a lot of transfer fees in the January market.
I think the biggest outlay in all of this would be the money that they gave Erik ten Hag during the summer to try and build that squad that he needed to be competitive this season for Manchester United. And given they had crisis meetings after the FA Cup final trying to decide if the manager would stay, to then give him so much money and of course sign that new contract, which now will cost more to pay him off, the money saving that's gone into Manchester United is going to take a big hit by that, and let's see how that will affect any future signings, including Giovanni Quinda. Moving on to Liverpool, and they are reportedly interested in Nottingham Forest centre-back Murillo, but could face competition from Chelsea. And this, I think, is a very underrated player. He's played every minute for Nottingham Forest in the Premier League this season. They're currently sitting in 7th, just 2 points outside the top 4, and they've conceded only 7 goals in the league this season, which is only behind Liverpool for the best defence in the league. Now, Murillo is their joint most valuable player, along with Morgan Gibbs-White at 40 million according to our market values. But he's just a sensational player. He's a sensational defender. He's brilliant on the ball, and Liverpool are coming into a time now where they might be able to keep Van Dijk for another season or two, but of course they need to plan for life after him, and they need to bolster that defence. Do you think Murillo is a sensible target for them to have identified?
100%. I'm completely with you, Matt. I think he's one of the most underrated centre-backs in the league. What he's doing for us this season is remarkable. I thought last season he was one of their star performers as well. You talk about that defensive record with Milinkovic as well. It's a really good centre-back pairing. I think the biggest thing for Murillo that makes him so attractive to potential buyers is the fact he's left-footed. Having that kind of left-footed centre-back is... Every big club wants it in terms of kind of ball progression, building up from the back, natural passing angles. So yeah, he's valued at 40 million euros. I imagine it'll take in excess of that to prize him away from Nottingham Forest, and they're having a really good season, really good season. They probably want to have ambitions of finishing the top 10. I think that was their ambition at the start of the season, so they're well on track for that. Will they sanction a sale in January? I'd be surprised, but if you look at Liverpool being the main potential suitors at the moment, there's still question marks over Virgil van Dijk, who obviously does play predominantly on that left-hand side, so it makes sense for them to start looking at potential alternatives with his future still not clarified.
One thing that always surprised me about Murillo after I watch him play is remembering that he's only 22, because he has this incredible knack of just being in the right place at the right time, and it's something that wins games. If you're always a defender getting your head on a cross into the box, or if you're the one kind of stepping out from defence to make these interceptions, it's what Murillo is really good at. And he seems to just play kind of beyond his years, because at 22 years of age, his reading of the game is absolutely sensational. And the links for his future have even extended so far as to say that Real Madrid are interested, which I think tells you everything you need to know about the quality of the player. But whoever can get him will be very, very lucky. He's not the only player that Liverpool are monitoring at the moment, and reports say that they're monitoring Benfica and Turkey midfielder Orkun Kökçü. He was a key part of Arne Slot's title-winning side at Feyenoord back in 2022-23. Only missed 2 league games that season, and contributed with 11 goals and assists from midfield. And there's a few players that he played alongside there that we've heard a lot more of since, Mats Wiefer and Quinton Timber being 2 of them. But he's a very interesting profile of player, because he can play in the centre midfield, he can play more defensive, he can play more attacking, But he has really good output as well. In his time at Benfica, 54 games, he's 25 goal contributions, which is nearly one every 2 games. He's a very, very exciting player, of course, as well for the Turkish national team as well. Do you think this is one that Liverpool will be able to get done, or should they be looking maybe for a more proven player in the top 5 leagues?
I think it's a deal that makes sense if Slot knows him so well from his time at Feyenoord. Like you mentioned, I think it's 5 goals and assists already this season in the Portuguese league, and I believe that Liverpool scouted him when he played against his former club Feyenoord just recently. So Liverpool's midfield balance has been really good this season. They've got players that can kind of play different roles. You've got Gravenberch, who's kind of dropped into the six. You've got Curtis Jones, who's really emerged as a first team player. Alexis McAllister, Sabot like they change it. Look at the Chelsea game and the game at the weekend. They kind of change who they play in there, so they've got real variety in there. And I think having a player who can perform different roles in the midfield, it would really suit Liverpool and how they play under Slot. They probably need to add maybe another one in the January window, or perhaps even the summer. I don't think Endo's really a player that Slot fancies too much. And yeah, I think Alexander Arnold, there's lots of talk about him going to midfield, but realistically, he's going to be a right back under Arne's Slot. So another midfielder does make sense, and his profile is really exciting. He's a great age as well. He's still 23 years old. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Like, one of the biggest benefits you get from dealing with Benfica in particular is that you know what you're getting. They'll tell you can have the player, but you need to pay this much. There's not going to be any gamesmanship. There's not going to be any long drawn out negotiations. So I think if Liverpool want him, they'll get the figure they need to pay, and they can decide there and then if they want to move on. But definitely a really, really exciting player, and one that, like I said, Arne Slot will know very well. There's not going to be any uncertainty about whether he'll fit into the system, or whether he can do the job, because Slot knows exactly what he can do. But definitely one to keep an eye on as we head towards the January window. Arsenal, we want to speak about next, and they're reportedly weighing up a bid to sign Brentford's 25-year-old Cameroon forward Brian Mbeumo. We spoke about him last week with regards to Aston Villa, but a bit of a step up in the links for him this week. And we did speak a little bit about Arsenal's front line as well. There were some links to Victor Gyökeres among others. Do you think Mbeumo would be the right profile for them to go for?
Yeah, I really like him. I think, like we talked about with Murillo, I think he's one of the most underrated kind of attacking players in the Premier League. And I think we talked about him before when we mentioned with Villa. You do forget that he's only 24 years old, and what he's doing this season for Brentford is incredible. He obviously missed him at points in the last few seasons, but he's a top player. And I think at Arsenal there's still that question mark over they have enough quality in attack when it matters. You see maybe when they're missing one or two players in their attack, then the kind of the performances drop a little bit. And I think he's a player who could come in and play up top if needed. He could play out wide left. He could play wide right even. So that'd be a really interesting one. That's one you could even see being done, in the January window. Say Arsenal need a little bit of investment in that area to try and really push for the title. Do they, push the boat out and bring him in?
Yeah, and what we spoke about last week, and on the point I want to bring up again, because it's really impressive. He's got 8 goals in 9 Premier League games this season, but the only games he hasn't scored in have been against Liverpool, Manchester City, and Manchester United. So they're games you can understand a player not scoring in. Three defeats for them as well. But he's been absolutely clinical this year, and like you said, he's a very underrated player. And the fact that Brentford went out and replaced Ivan Toney, but Igor Thiago suffered a really bad injury, and they don't seem to really be missing that focal point in their lineup this season, because Mbeumo was putting the ball in the back of the net so consistently. He's a player who does deserve a move to a more competitive club in the Premier League, and it's one that I think he will get, if it's not January or this summer, certainly the next one. But let us know in the comments down below your thoughts on Mbeumo's future. Do you think Arsenal is where he will end up? Let us know as well what you think about the Liverpool rumours. Do you want Orkun Kökçü to make that move to join Arne Slot again, and do you think Murillo will get that move to a bigger club too? Make sure to subscribe down below if you want more of these daily transfer news updates with myself, Ewan, and the rest of the team. Hit that like button as well if you have enjoyed this update.